the two biggest, like the two main leading candidates are both at least registering about crypto, with a suggestion from one who's leading in the polls on poly markets, maybe not on other polls, but he's leading on poly markets in the polls, that Bitcoin's about to be part of the US Treasury going forwards. Whether it means they're going to buy extra to add to that treasury or not, like whatever, leave that up to people. But that means that the biggest financial economy in the world is about to have potentially about to have Bitcoin on its balance sheet. And even if you give that, let's say he's just doing it for votes, but okay, and in that scenario, let's say just go really, really like underestimate what the probability of all this happening is. So let's just say 5% probability that is going to happen, that America are about to put Bitcoin on its balance sheet. If you're any sort of risk manager for any other sovereign fund, especially in a country that doesn't have the greatest finances, surely you're starting to think, let's take a punt on this and get it in our sovereign wealth fund, like before America do. Because if they come through and start buying or continue to legitimize after the biggest like asset manager in the world is already shilling it, like being BlackRock and ETFs coming out, surely you're thinking as like a sovereign wealth fund of pretty much any country, let's get a little bit of allocation to this. Sales team at BlackRock are now trying to sell Bitcoin to clients. Like I honestly really think that we, especially in the crypto space, and I've been in the same trap. I've been thinking, I'm not sure what's going to happen. Like I'm worried about, is this the top? Have we seen the top? But then I've just like almost I've had like a few weeks less involved, and I've just took a step back and I've thought, like, what the fuck am I worrying about? Seriously, like I know the short-term volatility could happen. We could see any sort of existential crisis. We could see a war. We could see whatever. And that's another thing I do want to talk about is that I do think there's a lot of leverage in the system. I talked about it this morning on my YouTube video that there could be a leverage flush, and that could take us, which could be a big one. It could take us like to what 55k, and if it's worse, like we could. This is a could, by the way, could just wick out the lows and stop some people out. All possible, but after that, like the longer term, medium to long term, like and I don't even think that's necessarily a probability that we do get that. I think it's possible, and I do think we'll see some sort of leverage flush. Whether we get 55, I really don't think so. I think that comes to 58 lowest, personally. But whether we do or we don't get that, skip on a month or 2 months, and like it's looking good. It's looking good in terms of Bitcoin specifically and what I think for the crypto market.
Yeah.
I was listening to Raoul Pal interview. Is it Richard Tang, the new CEO of Binance? And he was saying that this year so far, they've had a 36% growth in institutional clients. And that's like, and we still haven't really breached all-time highs. So they've had a 36% growth in institutional clients this year, and we still haven't really broken all-time highs. So like that's, again, extra demand that we didn't really have last cycle. Obviously legitimized by the ETF, probably like with the asset class. But it's just like, I feel like there's so many like feeders going into the pot and like taking out Bitcoin, but we just haven't got the sentiment right yet. Like, well, we got ahead of ourselves with sentiment, and now we're like paying the price for it. And everyone's like, because we've been paying the price for so long, and we know that sideways price action is horrible. Like we're sitting here all together. Like we look at the markets every day. It's not nice. It's boring. And after a bit, you're like, oh, maybe that person is right. And it is like a self-reinforcing echo chamber. But realistically, if you look at what's going on like around the world, providing, as I said, we don't have that financial collapse, like there's more and more people taking out the supply and introducing new capital. I don't see how we can't expand like as a space when debt's increasing as well. Like if debt was decreasing over time and there was less demand, then it would be a different conversation. But when there's more demand and more debt, so and like loosening of monetary policy, so that some of that debt is going to be more liquid, so people can spend it or whatever, and the credit becomes easier and there's overflow capital, assets should increase in value. In like in a normal mathematical world, like that's the only probabilistic outcome, in my opinion.
This one, you know more about the macro.
Who's the macro guy?
Yeah.
I wouldn't say I'm the macro guy. I'm learning, but I spend a lot of time looking at it, and I've spoke about gold a lot. And what I basically said is, like, gold's telling us that something's come in. Said that for a while, and I've said that something coming could, of course, be good. It could just be printing of money, and it looks like that's what it's going to be, or loosening of financial conditions. It looks like that's what it's going to be as gold broke out, just as Jerome Powell basically confirmed that we're probably not confirmed, but said that we're probably going to have rate cuts in September, and they're priced in at 25%, but now moving towards potentially 0.25% or 25 basis points, potentially moving towards 50, which is the word in the street at the minute. But that's not even until September. So we've got all this time to speculate. Another thing you talked about is equities starting to expand the equity markets. But more recently, we've started to see a rotation out of like the Mag 7 into like smaller cap equities. Famously, Blockchain Back has been talking about the Russell 2000, and basically it's liquidity moving from two different trades: the yen against the dollar. The yen's been strengthening against the dollar, and then also tech stocks unraveling a little bit, but that liquidity hasn't gone nowhere. This is kind of the thing I talk about. It has to the money goes somewhere, like in the markets. So when debt expands as an asset class of assets in general, like it's just like pumping a balloon bigger and bigger. And like, yeah, maybe if you're pushing on that side probably goes up. So as the Mag 7 have been losing some market cap, the Russell's come up to its 702 retracement, and gold's broken out to go to all-time highs. So they're indicating to me, like all of that's indicating to me that if crypto is any of the things that you would basket with that, so maybe like a safety trade, or even like call it like a growth trade, so risk on, whatever you want to bracket it as, they've all started to expand. So crypto is either not going to expand and it's going to go to zero, which is technically possible, or it's just going to expand soon.